Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spent. Take another look and spend some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes, it's time for hemp. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 bales of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, time for help! Yeah!
On October 10th of this year, our country made its 20 millionth marijuana arrest. 20 million sounds like a big number, but you may not realize how big. 20 million marijuana arrests is the equivalent of arresting 2/3 of everyone living in the state of California, or the entire state of Texas. Arresting 20 million marijuana smokers is like arresting every single person in North Dakota, and South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Delaware, West Virginia, Nebraska, Alaska, Idaho, New Mexico, New Hampshire, Vermont, Utah, Rhode Island, Kansas, Maine, and Washington, D.C. Any way you cut it, it just doesn't seem like America anymore. A nation divided against itself cannot stand. Help us come together to put an end to marijuana prohibition and the astronomical arrest rate. Visit normal.org for more information.
Thank you for taking time for Hemp. I'm your host, Casper Leach. On the program today, my joint host, Gateway Galbraith, and I are being joined by a remarkable individual, a fighter of freedom and a protector of our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. He is the Honorable Congressman Barney Frank, and the Congressman introduced last year in 2008 the Personal Use of Marijuana by Responsible Adults Act, and we want to thank you, Congressman, for being part of our show.
I'm glad to do it and glad to have this opportunity to help spread the word.
Now, Congressman, what was it that brought you to the point of writing the legislation of the personal use of marijuana by responsible adults?
Well, I'm a great believer in personal freedom. I've opposed the efforts by various people to ban Internet gambling. I oppose restrictions on speech. I think one of the best and smartest books ever written was a book called On Liberty by an Englishman in the 19th century, John Stuart Mill, that essentially says we're not in charge, the rest of us, of what you choose to do as an individual. Now, with marijuana in particular, it's clear to me that does a great deal of social harm. There's a great deal of unfairness in this. If you are young, especially if you're non-white, you're much more likely to get caught than if you're a 50-year-old white professional. The enforcement is discriminatory. We have law enforcement saying, oh, we don't really enforce this. But there was recently an incident in New York where a police officer saw a man smoking on the street what he thought to be marijuana, obviously just a user, no indication that this man was selling in any way. They chased the man and knocked him down, sexually assaulted him with a nightstick, just an awful incident, all because they saw someone smoking marijuana. So, and as they said in the title of the bill, I want to make room in the prisons for the people who belong there. I want to make room on the agenda of police officers for people hurting others. And when we go after something that's purely voluntary, like the smoke of marijuana, we are interfering with personal freedom and diverting scarce resources.
Congressman Frank Gateway Galbraith here. I'm a criminal defense attorney in Lexington. I've run for public office, statewide basis to pass, and also ran for Congress, didn't make it. I was looking at your proposed legislation, and at first glance I was saying, well, that doesn't really do a lot. It doesn't change marijuana status as a Schedule I drug. But then I got thinking that it wouldn't change federal laws prohibiting cultivation of marijuana or sale or import or export. But what I'm thinking is, since it would only affect federal people and up to 100 grams, would it remove these people from the problems they're having from a marijuana charge for financial aid on a federal level? Would it help take?
Absolutely, it would remove that barrier that people suffer if they were caught using, and it would prevent law enforcement activity against people who are using marijuana. You're right; it doesn't do all these other things. I think the appropriate thing to do would be to pass this bill, if we could, and then we can see where we go from there. As you know, some states have said that they don't want to prosecute people for using marijuana, but their decision as a state is overridden because it remains a federal crime. And, of course, we have the outrageous situation in California where under the Bush administration, they prosecuted people who were using the California law to use marijuana for medical purposes.
Yes,
this would be outlawed by either this bill or another bill I filed specifically exempting medical marijuana users from prosecution.
Yes, sir. Now, do you think that before it can happen, before the federal government gets out completely, that a rescheduling of it? I mean, Schedule 1 is total fiction. I mean, it says that it's high potential for abuse and no medical capabilities, which we all know is a fiction. Is that what's eventually going to have to be eliminated?
Well, I think so, but you can accomplish that just by changing the what it means in this case. I mean, remember, the law is what it says it is. And if we pass a law that says you can't be prosecuted for smoking marijuana, then no matter what schedule it's in, that's the case.
Yes, sir. How about hemp, Congressman? Are you familiar about hemp as a biofuel?
I have heard about it. I think the restrictions on hemp are foolish. They're purely a byproduct of the anti-marijuana hysteria. I would repeal those and allow hemp to be used.
Well, just as an aside, you get 20 barrels of petroleum off of an acre of hemp. It's something that we folks here in Kentucky, which was the world's largest hemp producer for over 100 years, we would like to see an effort to return as biofuel and like to get the DEA out of our energy policy by letting our farmers... Well,
it also would have the advantage of not competing with other sources of biofuels which could drive up food prices.
Exactly, sir. If it's possible, we'd like to send your office some material on that, if you would
sure.
accept it.
Please feel free to do that.
Now, how do other members in Congress feel about your approach with this?
Well, a large number agree with me, but they're afraid if they were to say so, they would be hurt politically. I think this is a case where the members of Congress are lagging behind public opinion. When we have referenda here, like we just did in Massachusetts, the public is more enlightened on this than members of Congress. So there's growing support for it, but people who agree with us need to call their members of the House and Senate and say, you know what, it's okay to be sensible here. You don't have to act as if this was some crusade against some terrible evil. And as I said, I think we have many more members who agree with us privately than are prepared to say so publicly, which means a good lobbying campaign could be very helpful.
So what's happening with it now? Where does it stand now?
Well, it's still in committee. I am not going to push for a vote on it until we would have more votes. It wouldn't help our cause if it were to be defeated heavily. So what I'm trying to do now is use this as a rallying point so people can go and talk to their representatives and senators.
Do you think with the new administration it's going to be a new breath of fresh air that's going to help make this change possible?
Well, I would hope that they would go back to where Bill Clinton was and not prosecute people in California. Attorney General Janet Reno refused to do that. But I don't have any high hopes that the Obama administration is going to join me here. I think this president is more cautious than that, more cautious than he should be.
Doesn't Congress know that the illegal black market needs a bailout?
Well, actually, the illegal black market would be hurt if we made it legal. Look, the greatest supporters of prohibition were the bootleggers and the right wingers. The bootleggers love prohibition.
I've written a book called The Last Free Man in America Meets a Synthetic Subversion, Congressman Frank. And, there are things I do not agree with you on, but I want to thank you as an American for standing up there and talking about the words civil liberties and personal freedoms.
Thank you very much, and I'll keep fighting, and I hope everybody listening who agrees with us will call their members of Congress and their senators and tell them that.
Yes, and I want to thank you for being such a hard-working fighter of our freedoms, Congressman Frank. You are an amazing individual. Now, if people really want to make this difference, besides calling their congressman, what else do you think that they could do to make this
That's
come
it.
out?
Call their congressmen and senators, and then ask their friends to call them.
All right.
Thank you so much, Congressman Frank.
All right. Nice to talk to you guys.
Yes,
thank you for taking time for Hemp.
Hi, I'm Montel Williams. Most of you know me as a talk show host, but I'm also an author, actor, single father of 4, a fitness writer, avid snowboarder, and I'm also a medical marijuana patient. Like many of the million people who are living with multiple sclerosis, I'm in pain every single day. And sometimes my nerves are so raw that if you brushed up against me in an elevator, I'd scream. I can't sleep at night from the pain, and sometimes the spasms in my legs are so intense they will wake me up throughout the night. I've tried the strongest prescription medications available, and I'm going to tell you, they do not work. And in fact, they leave me in a stupor, and most of the time, it's impossible to even live your life. Now, I've tried medical marijuana, and I'm going to tell you something, it works. If you'd like more information about medical marijuana, you can contact the Marijuana Policy Project at mpp.org or call 1-877-JOIN-MPP.